Rain spattered the windows of the O'Sullivan Inn long after the storm had blown itself out, the leftover drops tapping like children reluctant to leave a party. Maeve O'Sullivan stood on the front step, palms on her hips, surveying the wreckage the gale had wrought. Roof slates littering the drive, a toppled sign swinging by a single iron nail, and beyond the headland, the Atlantic prowling against the rocks in a churn of foamy green. She tightened her shawl. 6 months a widow, she told herself she had learned to read the moods of the sea, but that night's storm had spoken a language she had never heard. She grabbed a burlap sack and set off along the strand to gather driftwood for the inn's fireplaces. The tide was still retreating, dragging fronds of seaweed like tattered lace. A glimmer in the shingle caught her eye. At first she thought it a piece of sailcloth, but as she stooped, the fabric moved of its own accord, supple and slick, like something alive. Maeve lifted it free of the pebbles and gasped. It was a coat, if coat it could be called. Seal made, not of wool or leather, but of sealskin, thick as winter and soft as smoke. Salt water purled on the fur, rolling off in perfect spheres. Her late husband Eamon had whispered the old stories on dark nights, seals that shed their skins to walk the earth as men and women, bound to whomever stole the hidden coat. Maeve had laughed then, pressing a kiss to his temple. Now the hag of the sea placed temptation in her hands. The skin was heavier than it looked, cold and throbbing faintly as though a heart still beat inside. She folded it and shoved it into the sack, her own pulse skipping. It was only a pelt, she scolded herself, yet fear chased wonder through her veins. Back at the inn, she climbed the narrow stairs to the unused attic. Eamon's tools were still on the bench, his handwriting labeling every jar of screws. Maeve slid the sealskin into a cedar chest between folded blankets, dropped the lid, and pressed her palms against the wood. The coat belonged to someone, perhaps a fisherman who'd skinned a seal. But deep in her marrow she knew better. "I'm only keeping you safe," she whispered to the chest. Outside, gulls screamed. 2 days later, a stranger appeared at her door. He came barefoot up the gravel drive, trousers rolled to the knee, linen shirt clinging damply to a chest bronzed by sun, his black hair curled at his nape, beads of seawater still glittering. Maeve's heart lurched, not with longing but recognition, the way a violin hums when the right note is struck near. "Good morning," he called, voice lilting like a flute. "I heard you might have a room." She smoothed her apron. "You've heard correctly, mister. Call me Ronan." His smile flashed white, yet his eyes, gray as fog, slid past her toward the hallway, assessing. "I'm searching for something I lost along this stretch after the storm. Thought to stay a night or two while I look." Maeve's fingers twitched, remembering the weight of the sealskin. "Plenty of folk lost belongings," she said, stepping aside. "You'll have the West Room. 3 meals a day comes with it, so long as you don't mind hearty fare. I'll eat anything that isn't boiled shoe leather." He grinned, and her irritation softened despite itself. At supper, he joined the handful of guests at the long pine table, an old German couple touring the coast, a Dublin school teacher grading papers, and now the drifter, who filled the room with the scent of salt and dusk. Maeve ladled out bowls of chowder. Ronan tasted and closed his eyes, a sound escaping him that was half sigh, half growl. The older woman tittered. Maeve felt warmth rise to her cheeks. "When did you lose your belonging?" she asked carefully as she refilled mugs of ale. "Night of the storm," he said. "Funny thing, the sea gives and the sea takes. I thought it secure, but—" He shrugged, though tension bracketed his mouth. "Without it, I'm stuck," the schoolteacher chuckled. "A sweetheart's locket, is it?" "Something like that," Ronan replied, gaze flicking to Maeve. She hurried to the kitchen, the scent of fish suddenly cloying. That evening, after guests retired, Ronan lingered in the dim hallway, tracing a finger along photographs of Eamon holding lobsters, Eamon holding their daughter Emin as an infant. He'll die this spring, Maeve said before she could swallow the words. Ronan faced her, expression soft. I'm sorry. The ones we love leave holes no storm can fill. She found herself blinking away surprise. Few visitors spoke of grief so plainly. You're a poet, Mr. Ronan. Not by trade, only by necessity. He inclined his head. Good night, Mrs. O'Sullivan. She watched him climb the stairs, two at a time, swift as any seal slipping through surf. When his door clicked shut, she exhaled, unaware she'd been holding breath. The next morning, Maeve rose early, creeping to the attic. The chest was undisturbed. She ran fingers over the lid, half expecting warmth, but the cedar was cold. Returning downstairs, she met Ronan crossing the foyer, trousers damp from dawn's tide. No luck, he said. Strange, it should have washed up nearby. Maeve licked dry lip. The currents are tricky. True, but when a thing belongs to you, sometimes it finds its way back. His eyes held hers until her stomach fluttered. Then he smiled and strode toward the dining room. Over the following days, he helped replace roof slates, hammered the signs steady, charmed the German couple with bawdy songs. Each small kindness tugged at Maeve. In the evenings, they sat on the terrace while the other guests dozed. He spoke of everywhere and nowhere, of archipelagos where birds wove nests from seaweed, of nights afloat beneath phosphorescent waves. She spoke of Eamon, away at university, and of Eamon's laughter echoing in empty rooms. Ronan listened as though every word were a shell he might press to his ear. The coat waited above them, pulsing like a secret. On the fifth night, thunder rolled distant, but the sky remained clear. Maeve carried fresh sheets to the linen closet. She froze when Ronan knelt before the closet door, head cocked. Thought I heard mice, he said lightly, rising. Her voice scraped her throat. Traps are set in the kitchen. Good to know. He moved down the corridor, but Maeve slipped into the closet, heart rattling. He had not been listening for mice. She lay awake that night in the room she once shared with Eamon, the hush broken by waves hammering the cliffs. Her mind rehearsed what might happen if she returned the coat. The legend said he'd be free to leave, back to the water that birthed him. But if she kept it? Folk tales hinted that marriage is forged that way. She pictured Emmer coming home to a stepfather who was part myth, and trembled with longing and shame. Near dawn she rose, descended to the kitchen, and found Ronan at the table, head in his hands. He started when she entered. Couldn't sleep, he murmured. Nor I. She poured 2 mugs of tea, the kettle sputtering like an old man. Tell me truly, Ronan, what is it you've lost? His gaze held a storm's weight. Slowly, he pulled a silver ring from his pocket, set it on the table. The band was shaped like a seal biting its own tail. This reminds me who I am, he said. But without the rest, the ring is only a promise unkept. My coat is my skin. His voice cracked, the first fissure in his easy charm. Maeve touched the rim of her mug. Steam blurred her sight. If you found it, she asked, would you leave, sooner or later? He offered a wan smile. The sea keeps its own calendar. She nodded, throat tight, and retreated before tears betrayed her. That afternoon, Emmer telephoned from Galway, voice bright with exams and roommates. When conversation ebbed, she asked, And how are you, Mum? Maeve's gaze slid to the staircase. She pictured the sealskin folded like a question mark in its chest. I'm managing, she said. Emmer hesitated, then promised a visit in a fortnight. After hanging up, Maeve pressed her palm to her sternum, startled to feel her heart pound like a fist against a locked door. At dusk, Ronan disappeared toward the cove. Hours later, he hadn't returned. Fear prickled Maeve's skin. Grabbing a lantern, she hurried along the path. Moonlight silvered the rocks. She found him waist-deep in water, shoulders shaking. Ronan, she called. He turned, and moonlight shone on the trails of salt down his cheeks. I can't stay much longer, he said, voice ragged. and I can't leave. The tide surged around his hips, tugging. Maeve waded in, water burning with cold. She took his hand. Together they stumbled ashore, collapsing onto weed-slick stones. There in the hush between waves, she felt his pulse racing, felt her own answer it. When they reached the inn, she led him to the parlor, where a peat fire glowed. He crouched before it, shivering. Maeve draped a wool blanket over his shoulders and, before sense intervened, pressed a kiss to his damp hair. He flinched as though scorched. "Forgive me," she whispered, but he captured her wrist. "Maeve, is there something you found? Anything that doesn't belong to you?" The flames crackled. Shadows danced on his face, half man, half something older than stone. She thought of Emmer's childhood, of Eamon's final breaths, of empty mornings. She thought of herself, more lonely than she dared confess. Her mouth opened, but footsteps creaked overhead. Another guest to appease. The moment shattered, she withdrew her hand and fled the room. Sleep did not come. Near dawn she rose, candle in hand, and climbed to the attic. She pulled the coat out. In the scant light it gleamed, each hair catching gold. Lifting it to her face, she inhaled brine and vastness, a scent that was not hers to claim. Downstairs, she found Ronan in the kitchen, staring into darkness. "I have something," she said. His head snapped up. She laid the folded skin on the table. He touched it with reverence, eyes shuddering. "You kept it safe," he whispered. "I was afraid," she admitted, "of losing you before I'd even found you." Ronan rose. "I am grateful, Maeve, but gratitude isn't enough." She nodded. "I know." They carried the coat to the shore. Dawn had bled pink into the sea. Ronan stripped to the waist, fresh scars puckered his ribs, fishermen's hooks, she realized with a pang. He draped the skin round his shoulders, and it clung as though greeting its own flesh. Where man had stood, a sleek gray seal now balanced on the sand, dark eyes shining. The creature nuzzled Maeve's palm before turning to the water. The seal paused at the surf's edge. For a heartbeat, Maeve glimpsed Ronan within those eyes, a question unspoken. She gave one small nod. He slid into the tide and was gone, ripple after ripple melting into the greater blue. Maeve remained until the sun cleared the horizon, warming tears she hadn't noticed spilling. She returned to the inn, climbed the stairs to the room he had occupied. The bed was neatly made, the wardrobe empty save the silver ring atop the pillow seal biting its tail, circle unbroken. Below it lay a note, sea spray smudging the ink. "Maeve, the sea is not cruel, it simply keeps moving. Remember that holes in the heart are entrances as well as exits. When you look upon the waves, know I am home, and a part of me will always carry your name like a beacon." And she slipped the ring onto her smallest finger where it spun loosely, a wheel set free. A fortnight later, Emmer arrived, filling the inn with laughter. Mother and daughter walked the strand, gulls wheeling overhead. Maeve told her of the storm, of a lost traveler who had come and gone. She did not mention myths, yet when Emmer hugged her close, Maeve felt no holes, only openings. That night, wind rattled the windows, playful rather than menacing. Maeve stepped onto the terrace, mug of whiskey warming her hands. Far out, beyond the breakers, a seal broke the surface, lifted its head, and seemed to watch. The moon laid a silver road from her feet to the creature. Maeve raised her mug in salute. The seal vanished, leaving only rings spreading outward, a promise kept by water and by heart. She drank the last of the whiskey and went inside, latching the door with quiet certainty. Outside, the ocean breathed, and Maeve O'Sullivan breathed with it. Each exhalation, a story begun anew.